Hey everyone! Thank you for taking the time to join in with Uncommon Women Podcast, a dope podcast to bring light to reality from real life people sharing real life stories with a host of women having real life talk, the good and the bad, with no judgment. Uncommon Women's Loyalty is here to support those that need a safe space to speak their truth and rawness to the world. Tune in, relax, take notes, and let's vibe. Here are your hosts, Uncommon Women.
Hi, thank you for tuning in to Uncommon Women. I'm Shanira.
And I'm Jenny Lee.
And I am Tyra, the Go Guru.
So today I'm super excited. We have an amazing speaker that's going to be jumping on with us in just a moment by the name of Nani. She's a mother of two daughters, which has one daughter that's serving the military, a minister, business owner, life insurance agent, and podcaster. Today she's going to be sharing her story of how she's overcame many challenges in life. Despite it all, she's able to rise to the top. But before we get into her story, thank you, Nani, so much for coming on the podcast today. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So before we get into your amazing testimony, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and how was your life growing up?
Sure. So I was born in Kentucky, so I have Kentucky blood in me. Okay. But I wasn't raised in Kentucky. My mom remarried and she moved to Miami before I was a year old. So I have a little country and city in me. So I grew up in Miami where it was a melting pot. Grew up with a lot of different friends from different cultures. I saw a lot in Miami. I'm actually very grateful for the opportunity to be able to grow up in a big city where I was able to expand my thinking and my mindset. And so later on in life, I moved back to Kentucky. Well, I take that back. I moved to Indiana first. And from Indiana, when I moved from Indiana, it was such a culture shock. The town that I was in, it was a small town. And I decided that, as soon as I can, I'm going to get out of here. So I stayed there long enough to have my daughter, the one that's 21. And one day I just started coming to Louisville, Kentucky. I was telling my family that I was going to work, but I was coming to Louisville, Kentucky, actually looking for a job and looking for an apartment. And I moved here. By the time I figured everything out, got the apartment, I had like $400 left, but I still came with a toddler. And so I've been here ever since. So I'm back in Kentucky, where I think God wanted me to be.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you, what drew you back to Kentucky? How do you know that was your space?
Well, my father's he was a pastor. He passed 3 years ago, but he came here to do a funeral. And he brought me here with him to do a funeral. I had an uncle that lived here. So I came to Louisville a few times. I think once when we visit Kentucky, when I was living in Miami, we came to Louisville. But I knew that it was kind of like a city. So I told myself, I wanted to be more in like a little, at least get to a city again, So I remember when I was here with my dad, as we were leaving out, it was just something in my spirit said, you're going to move here. And I remember I just spoke it. I said, Dad, I'm going to live here one day. And he was like, girl, no, you're not. I was like, okay. And, I heard that little small, still voice telling me that I would. And, here I am. So.
I'm thinking it's the Kentucky Derby. Y'all big on Kentucky Derby.
They are.
In fact, it's the Kentucky Derby. But
from the Kentucky Derby. Yes.
So with your dad being a pastor and growing up in that different type of lifestyle, can you speak on the church and how that affected you and how you got into doing ministry?
Sure. Like I said earlier, I didn't actually get to grow up with my dad. When I got to my dad, I was in my late teen years. So my mom, she's a very spiritual woman of God, and she raised us in the church in Miami. So I got baptized when I was 7. We went to a little storefront church in Miami called St. John Missionary Baptist Church.
Okay.
And she just, she just was very deeply rooted into Christianity and in the church. And it's just been something like many of us, that we grew up with, like we couldn't get away from it. So. Mm-hmm.
So growing up in the church, did you have any misconceptions, or did you, what, were there any situations that, even growing up as a child and being Christian in the church, was there any situations that happened along the way that made you feel like, that may have kept you and wanted that you keep you away from the church?
Did you say that'll keep me away from the church?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, growing up in the church, it was great. In Florida, I loved the pastor. And so the memory that I had, even when I came to live with my dad, being the preacher's daughter, there's all kind of perks and everybody's nice to you and bringing pies and things to the house. So, I didn't really get to see a lot. And so once I got on my own, which I actually moved out. I only stayed with my dad like about a year once I left Miami.
Okay.
And so I moved out on my own. And so, those late teen years to basically like 30, I really did not get too involved in the church. I think I was churched out, so I would go when I wanted to go. I took my daughter a few times. And so when I actually decided to commit back, it was pretty much, I just did an episode talking about the prodigal son. It was pretty much one of those situations where, I kind of lived life a little bit, got around some of the wrong people, got into relationships that wasn't good for my soul. And I had a moment, I had a come to my senses moment in my bedroom one day. And I just cried out to God and I told him, like, Lord, I don't know what I've done with my life. I had that freedom because God will give us that freedom. We have the opportunity to make choices and do what we want to do. And so as soon as I had that opportunity, I did. But I looked at my life and I wasn't satisfied. And so I couldn't think of anything but to cry out to God. And I did that in my bedroom. And he started working on me. And I felt it in my spirit that I needed to get back into the church so that I could learn about him. And especially being here in a city where I didn't really have family. I haven't been homeless. I haven't been hungry. That's part of my testimony. I love telling people about that. I haven't even had to ride the bus. God has, even though my fleshly part of me have put myself around certain people that wasn't good for me, the Lord will always strip them away before, it could do harm to me. And so in that moment of crying out to God, in that come to moment in my bedroom, it's like God was showing me, even though I was feeling pain because of just where my life was at that moment, he was showing me how through it all, he's never left. Even though I might not have, been seeking him, he's been there the entire time. And so it's like he put in my mind the memories of, look, you haven't been homeless. You've been in the city. You came here with $400. You're a single mom. You're raising a child. Regardless of how hard it's been, I've been protecting you. I've been your provider. And, I felt in that moment that he wanted me to get in the church, learn more about him, learn more about his word. And also, I felt that he was calling me to other single parents as well, to let them know that, even though life gets hard, you don't have to do anything that is not in the will of God to survive. And so that was my mission. And so I was like literally on a mission. I had a church that I was visiting every now and then for like 10 years and I never joined. But after that moment, it was like it was weird the way that I found the church that I went to, because a neighbor of mine, she wasn't even a member, but she was going to visit. So she invited me to visit, like a Bible study. And from that moment on, I remember praying on one Sunday, asking God, like, is this it? Is this where I'm supposed to be? And I felt he answered me and I joined. So around 30 years old is when I stepped back into the church.
Wow.
And that's when I started to see it was not the same like I remembered as a child.
Yeah.
Different minds, of course, so different perspectives. So I was able to see things a little bit differently. And then I also stepped into leadership. And I feel like that's a different ball game in the church. It's one thing when you're
Yes,
just a lay
it
member,
is.
you go in, you worship, you
Mm-hmm. Yep.
praise. But when
Mm-hmm.
you get into leadership and you start really seeing a lot of different things, that's I feel like when it's pretty much like a game changer.
It is.
So it was a lot of things I seen then,
Yeah.
coming back in that made me decide after about 9 years, I felt it was my time to figure out a way to continue to walk my purpose out. I started to notice, look, we are in different times. We are not our parents. And I just started to do what the Bible says, test the tree by its fruit. I started noticing things and I couldn't just allow myself to stay put just because, of a commitment to man. I felt
Yeah.
like God was ready to do more and it was time to move forward because I did a lot in the church. I led the usher board. When I left out, I was leading the women's ministry. I was teaching, I taught Bible study, Sunday
Oh,
schools and
wow.
all of that, became a minister.
Yeah.
But at that point, I felt that God had other plans for me.
That's so powerful. So, so powerful. Before you actually found your purpose, in the ministry, you said you moved to a city by yourself with your daughter with only $400. How was life? Can you take us down, take a walk down memory lane on how it was being a single mom and, what trials and tribulations that you went through with your flesh before you was able to get into your purpose?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I first got here, it was like, when I look back now, God was definitely showing me who was boss. Um,
Mm.
I had the $400 and I thought, like I said, I wasn't telling anybody what I was doing. I didn't even tell my dad till it was time to pretty much like leave. And I got here and I had a job set up at the casino. I had a really, really good paying job. And the casino here where I live, it's not in Kentucky. We are neighboring states with Indiana.
Okay.
But we're neighboring states with different parts of Indiana. So there's like a Jeffersonville, there's a Clarksville, there's a New Albany, all that connects into Kentucky. And at that time, when I first got here, I had an apartment like right across the bridge in the Jeffersonville part of Indiana. And so I didn't know how to get to my job from where I was living. Because, like I said, I really didn't know much about this city. So
Right.
I was crossing two bridges every day. And long story short, about 2 weeks of being here and having my job, they called me in the office and told me, like, you got one more time to be late. We're on the point system. And if you're
Wow.
late again, we're going to have to let you go. So, like, I remember the day that I was going, traffic was backed up. I was going to be late. So I lost my job
Wow.
2 weeks after moving here. And I had to basically figure it out. But there was nothing in me that wanted to go back. There was nothing like, oh, this didn't work out. My mind was just like, okay, what's next? What do I have to do next? So I went and got a job and I had to work at a gas station. So I had to go from this good paying job to working at a gas station just so that I can continue to pay my rent and put food on the table. And so from that moment, it went from like just, it was a journey. It was a journey. I didn't really find a good paying job with benefits until probably like 10 years ago when I was working at the job that, we will probably discuss a little bit later. And I got a job in corporate America, but I had to wait on tables. It was definitely a struggle for me to be able to maintain. And one thing that I always told myself growing up is I would never just settle for a man just to take care of me. And
Mm.
with having girls, you really have to be careful on bringing men in your life.
Right.
And so that was
Yes.
like never my concern. My concern was just how can I continue to maintain. I've worked different jobs, even when I was working in corporate America and had a decent job, sometimes I would go and work third shift while the kids would sleep sometimes and clean planes at the airport just to get extra money, wait on tables, work at the tracks part-time because I did not want my kids to feel as if they were being raised by a single mother.
Mm.
Um, and God gave me the strength to do it all. I didn't want them to miss a beat. Some of the things that I did not have growing up, I never went to prom. And so, I wanted to make sure my daughter went to prom, junior and senior. And, I would have to work 2 or 3 jobs sometimes to make that happen. And looking back now, I don't even know how I did it. I really don't know how I did it, but could have been nobody but God strengthening me through it all.
I think it's important though that during your testimony, you're mentioning how you're doing the work too. You weren't like you were doing whatever you had to do. You weren't complaining, and it was you were in a position where you could have been like, I don't have $400, I'm not doing it. And I'm not going to settle for a job that's not better than what I had. You did the work. You earned your blessing. And I feel like I wanted to ask you if you could speak on that, because I think that it's important that you have this testimony because you're in such a position where people are looking up to you. And I think sometimes they shy away from the church. They get church hurt because they feel like, if I'm such a good follower of Christ, why am I going through anything like this? Or I should have more than 400, or I'm not working at a gas station. And it made you who you are today. So I think it's important that people don't shy away, and keep pushing through. But I just wanted to hear, like, have you experienced anyone that has dealt with like church hurt and used that as an excuse?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times what they see is because when people do come back into the church, especially like if you grew up in a church, or even those that's never been in the church, you have expectations for what you would think you're going to find in the church. You're going to a place to be healed. You're going to a place to be whole. But what we fail to realize a lot, and what, I had to learn the hard way, was sometimes, everybody's human. Even those that have never left the church. And a lot of people that's never left the church, I feel like a lot of times they get comfortable. And so you have people coming in with this strong desperation, and, they're just so sold out. They're just, whatever it is you need me to be, God, this is what I want to be. And when you have a willing heart, God will elevate you and do different things. And so then you have, just like the prodigal son, when he came home, his brother was saying, like, why are you throwing a party for him? Why are you doing this? He was, spending his money on prostitutes, and I was here the whole time. And, they don't really understand, because God sees the heart. And that's kind of what happened with me, because God was doing things that I never asked for. But I'm sure those that had never left wanted someone to be in those positions. And so, and also, a lot of people don't like to talk about church hurt, but it hurts at times when you have when you are expecting for something to be a certain way and you don't get that. But I think we put too much trust on man. I definitely see things differently now that I've been away for a while, because I had expectations that, okay, well, if you have a title of this and you have a title of that, there's certain morals and integrity that I will get out of this person, not knowing that everyone, does not have a heart like Christ. Everyone sometimes want the title for their own self gratifications and things like that. So that's where I was a little confused at. Just like gossip, drama, and all of that type of stuff, you find that in the church, just like you find it in the workplace, because we're humans coming together, and that's just something you can't get away from. But I think, when you don't expect to see that and you deal with it, and when you don't understand. And for me, a lot of times I didn't understand a lot, for one, what God was doing in my life. And he was elevating me and doing things and using me in ways. And so it's like I was learning as I was going. But people on the other opposite side looking at that, it's like, okay, you're doing a lot. I don't like it. And you feel it. You feel it. People have a nice, nasty way of showing you how they really feel about certain things. And it hurts you when, all you want to do is like, I didn't even ask you for this title and all this other stuff. I just want to be whole. I just want to be healed. But, you're taking me through something. And I think it all comes full circle. I think it all just kind of comes together eventually. And for me, it's about, like you said, not just giving up and still working and putting in the work and doing the work. Faith without works is dead. So if I believe God, regardless if I'm going into a church every day, every week, or if I'm, watching church on television, if I believe that God has a purpose for my life, my days are going to look like I believe it. So, I'm going to still study my word. I'm still praying. Even with the podcast, I feel that I have to still open my voice and tell people, how good God has been and the things that he's told me to do. And I continue to pray about it. And, you know, as long as God is making provision for it, I feel like I'm on the right path regardless. You know, and I've heard people say, well, you know, you're not in the will of God, or, you know, I just want to see you get back into the will of God and get into the church and do this. But that's where go back to being grateful for growing up in a place where I was able to not have an in the box mentality, because I feel that God can speak to me in ways that maybe others wouldn't understand. Because he would show me that I do have a purpose for your life. Even though I was using you inside of the church, right now, I feel that I started to notice when I started my podcast that my audience wasn't church folks. My audience was people that I was dealing with when I wasn't in the church. They were watching me. They were messaging me saying, hey, you blessed me. They were telling me how, you know, it's actually, I encourage them to go to church, to go on that same path, you know. So it's all about taking God outside the box and not allowing anyone to box in your purpose.
That's really good. And you brought up a good point. I think a lot of people, you know, when they're starting their relationship with God and going into church, they're idolizing man and putting them on a pedestal instead of actually building a relationship with God. Because a lot of people sway from going to church based off of something someone said or something someone did in the church, when our focus should be on God and our relationship and being a better person within him. And sadly, it happens all the time. It happens all the time in amongst churches, and a lot of people do sway away from that based off of something someone said that's been going to the church for years.
Yeah. And then it becomes like a popularity type of thing, you know. Like you say, they put all their faith in men, and some people see certain people in the church that's popular, so they come in. I mean, and I've had it too. Like, I've seen people that, like, to a lot of people wasn't really speaking to them. They kind of was shy. And I felt like, you know, God was telling me, go speak to them, kind of pull them out of their shell a little bit. And, you know, I would do that. But like, if a certain person that they felt had a little power, or, you know, a certain position, wanted them to kind of sway over their way, they would do whatever they need to do to be accepted. And I just feel like that just goes back to us truly knowing who we are in Christ. So we don't have to, you know, dumb ourselves down or suck up to people or try to be accepted into anybody's circle, whether it's in the church or outside of the church.
I agree. I definitely agree on that. That's a good point. So transitioning into, you know, corporate America and starting a new job, how was that transition of, you know, finally not having to have so many different types of hustles and finally just getting a good paying job and being a mom and just, you know, being content with working in the insurance industry?
It was I couldn't believe it was happening when it happened. Because, you know, those type of jobs, they take you through a long process. It's like a couple of weeks of, you know, hiring and all of that, testing and all kind of stuff. And I remember I was panicking. Like, I was driving to training. I was thinking if they had a point system too. So, you know, I already had an experience with that. Yeah. So I remember I was like always panicking. And I remember driving to work one day and I was listening to Marvin Sapp. He saw the best in me. And I was just praying to God, like, God, I can't believe that, you know, I got this job. And I felt like God gave me a calm, like he was saying, like, relax, chill out. You're going to have this for some years. He didn't say forever. So, you know, when I transitioned out of it, I wasn't too shocked because he said years. I was thinking something like 5 years at least. But I was happy. You know, I was just good that, you know, I didn't have to work as hard as had I, you know, how I was working. So, yeah, definitely a relief.
That's good. That's good. I love how God does that. I love like he just comes and tells you so you don't worry about later on, and you know when it does happen and you're just like, okay, now I know what you're talking about. So now I'm okay and I'm able to go to the next chapter and what else he wants me to do.
Right.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
And then you already know how he shows out for you. So it's like you have so much faith. It's like it's like I made it this far.
Right. Able to bring yourself back when, you know, naturally we default to that anxiety, like, oh, what happened? You know, when I got that call, like, no longer here with us. I kind of was like a little nervous at first, like, what just happened, and it's so funny because my 13-year-old daughter, she was telling me how she was like, Mom, when you lost your job, I was like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Are we going to be in the courthouse? And she said, yeah, she was like, after you did have a nervous breakdown in 2 weeks, I figured we'll be okay. But God definitely gave me that, confirmation that he wasn't doing it to hurt me. He was doing it to help me. You got to be careful what you pray for. I was praying for peace at this time after 10 years in corporate America. I was a business intelligence engineer, and I did a lot of data analysis and things like that. And it was very, very stressful. Sometimes I worked 10 hours. And I had the vision of my podcast and all of that, but it was like, I could barely put in probably 30% of, my visions because I was always so busy working and, pushing forward the next man's vision. And so God was just showing me like, this is a time for you to understand. You've been praying for more. You've been asking for me to increase your territory. It don't seem like it's happening. It seems like you're going backwards, but this is an opportunity for you to increase your faith, trust me, and look at it like the sky's the limit now. You can go back to the drawing board and you could do pretty much, you can actually do something you love to do every day instead of just surviving. It's time to live.
That's a word.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I knew you grew up in the church, and so you probably have a lot of idols or people that it's easy to look up to. How we just said, your father was a pastor, and it's normal to idolize men because we need some ambition to keep moving forward. And like from what I hear, you had a lot of tenacity. You didn't seem like you panicked much. You were brave. And I wanted to know who inspired you at that time when you were making all these changes, and you were a single mom, so you had to make these choices alone. Who inspired you to be so strong?
I definitely feel it was God. And that's the thing about the strength. Like people see the strength, but they don't see the tears. I definitely cried the tears. I cried out to God a lot. I have those moments. And when I first really was getting into ministry, I feel like my dad confirmed my gift because, I would do Bible studies and things like that. And I would actually go over what I was going to say with him. He would never help me with anything, but he would listen and he would tell me, you got it. You're anointed to do this. And he also, when I was dealing with things that I couldn't understand, he was able to actually walk me through it. And so I definitely feel that my father, and I also had some ladies in the church that would pray for me and pray with me when they could tell that, things was getting heavy on me. I had a few people that I could call and they would, kind of keep me encouraged and keep me, motivated to go forward. But the main person I feel that it was the Lord. Like I just remember a lot of times, even in church, times when things got hard, when I would go in the bathroom and cry sometimes, that little kind of quiet cry. And, God would just give me more strength and let me know not to be afraid and to continue to go forth, that he is with me always. And he said that he will never leave me nor forsake me. And, that's pretty much where my strength came from through it all.
That is so good. That is so good. Yeah. So taking a look back at your life, like just as a whole, what part of your life that makes you feel so accomplished that, you just go back and you think like, wow, like it's just wow, it just wows you to this point where you are in your life?
I would say just being here still being here, still being alive. I had a period in my life where I, would think about some of the dreams and things that I wanted to do that I didn't accomplish. And it would make me feel less than a person. Where I'm at now, and I just have to give all glory to God on this as well. He showed me that, he created us different for a reason. Everything, was for you may not be for me. And for me to just be grateful. Like the more he took away, it helped me to be grateful for what I had. Especially like even just losing my job, the Lord was showing me how, so what, it's a job, you can get a job, but Like, basically, don't be crying and praying like, oh God, what am I going to do? If you say you believe in me, I need you to know that, because it's easy. You know, people, I just talked to a friend and they was like, I got a raise. God's been good to me. God's been good. It's good when everything is going good, but what about when things aren't going so good? Can you still? So I feel my biggest accomplishment right now is being able to wake up in the spirit of gratitude, to be able to wake up knowing how I started my story, to see my daughter, the one that I came here with when I had $400. She's in the military. She has the same drive that I have. And, it's like I saw a little me when she became an adult. She was like, I want to live in Texas. And I'm like, no, girl, no, you ain't going to live in Texas. She's living in Texas. She didn't have a car when she went to Texas. She actually went to the military right after high school. Okay. So she didn't have her license when she left. She was in New York for a while. She ended up getting her permit and her license. Well, she got her permit before she left. She didn't have her license. She got her license in New York. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't even have a car. You're talking about moving all the way to Dallas, Texas. She's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to get a car. And so I went there when she moved, and I had met this lady that drove Lyft and everything. And I was trying to introduce her to certain people in Dallas. So, and she was like, oh, I don't need them because I'm going to get me a car. And she has her car. And she's a little bitty thing, like 5'3", 125 pounds. I call her G.I. Jane because she's a little soldier. But just to see her ambition, to see, everything that I went through didn't damage me, where I was able to raise her and, to look at my daughter now that's here with me. Regardless of the family support or whatever, to see her, 4.0 student council president, the thing we just did tonight, I feel that my biggest accomplishment is the fact that I could still see the hand of God and appreciate it, and not compare myself anymore to other people. The things that made me sad and made me feel less than was the things that the world told us that we should have. And so we do it. I've seen a lot of people, the world say, you should be married by a certain time. You should do all of this. Go to college, get the degrees, go get you a good job. And I've seen so many people do that and they're not happy. So being able to define what is happiness, not based off of what people are telling me, but what God tells me it should be. And just being able to still, be here and be grateful. So, a lot of times when my mind want to default into negativity or to stress or to worry, especially when I first wake up, I just start saying like, God, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this bed. If I can't think of anything, I'm grateful for this cup of coffee, and it just kind of put my spirit in the right place to be able to continue on with my day.
I love that. As parents, sometimes we do worry when, our children feel like they got it all together, and we're like, no, wait, let me help you out. Let me. But she's good with you. She's seen you struggle, but you were able to get yourself out of the mud, and I guess that inspired her and motivated her to be like, Mom, I got this. Yeah, I can do this. Don't worry, I got this. I was able to go to Dallas and take care of everything, and you did an amazing job being a mom and, planting those seeds of, not giving up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For sure. It makes sense.
She gets it from her mama, like Shanara said. Prime example.
And I like that you didn't discourage her and, you motivate her.
But what I see most of all with you is your faith.
Yeah. Yeah, they say faith is a spiritual gift, and I'm thinking that's probably the one the Lord gave me, because I've been through a lot where, and I feel that God allowed people to disappoint me at times, just so that I can lean on him and remember that nobody's running the show but God, and just as a single mom, like I said, not settling and all of that, and just continuing to have faith where I'm at right now, transitioning from corporate America to, basically entrepreneurship. It's taken a lot of faith, and I just put it on God. Like, Lord, you say it. And, like she said earlier, not just believing, but actually putting in the work. Faith without works is dead. And just showing God, like, I believe you said, this is what you said. So I'm going to get up every day. I can make my own schedule now, but I don't lay in the bed. I'm still up at 6 o'clock in the morning, doing things. I have an agenda. Like, I have to be serious if I believe God is telling me that there's more for me. So faith is definitely, I feel like that's probably my strong point.
Yes. So now, being a business owner and, making your own schedule and, living part of your best life, definitely with your own flexibility. Speak on how you were able to get into podcasting and, what inspired you to actually start a podcast.
Well, I left the church like 2 years ago. Actually, I think in a couple of weeks, it'll be 2 years exactly.
Okay.
And, a lot of times people leave the church, they may go to another church or they may go here. And I didn't really know what I was going to do, honestly. I really wasn't expected to leave when I left, but it was just a situation where I felt like, yeah, this is not really good for my soul. I want to serve, I want to do God's work, but at the same time, like, I'm helping people, but it's like my soul is like going into a place that I'm not comfortable with. That's to be nice. And so I didn't really know what I was supposed to do. I did hear God say, be still for a while. And I knew he was going to use me in some type of way. And I had man in my ear saying, well, you can start your own church, or you can do this, you can do that. And, God was just saying, being still. And he showed me that he was going to continue to use me to be able to tell people about him. And the podcast came about a year after. And I sat on it for a while and I moved in silence. And I just worked it. And I knew that this is what God wanted me to do. And I had to actually take that whole year, honestly, to be honest with you ladies. That first year I had to heal because, I feel that I was in a state of, I was very vulnerable going into the church. You remember I said how I cried out to God. I had just, came away from a lot of things in the world. And so a lot of things I wasn't expecting. I had to make sure that I wasn't disappointing God. Because I had a lot of people like, well, you're out of his will. That's not what he wants for you. You're supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be doing that. So that first year was, sit still, let God confirm that he wasn't mad at me. That what people were saying was not true, that he still wanted to use me, that he still had, purpose for my life. Then I had to heal and know that, I wasn't what, sometimes insecure people want to make you feel insecure, and people can look at it. I actually had to remember, like, hey, you did move here with $400. You was this strong person. When I left the church, I didn't really feel that way. I felt like I almost kind of was getting, like I was breaking down a little bit, forgetting who I was, just because of some of the reactions and some of the things that I dealt with. And the way that certain people handled me, as if I was broken. I was a person that shared my testimony about things. And sometimes people will flip that on you and make it seem like, oh, you're broken, you're healed. So if you got a problem with something, it's not, okay, well, let's deal with this. Oh, you're still hurt. You're still broken. You're this. So I felt like I was just this broken piece of person, for a long time. And God had to remind me of who I was. And he had to build me back up. And that's when I stepped out and started to do the podcast. And that's why I titled it According to His Purpose, because God was showing me that he has something for each and every one of us to do. He's not just calling for us to just be in the church. And, everybody's purpose is not within the four walls. He told us to go out, and he showed me like things was coming full circle for my life. And had I listened to other people, I probably would have been out of his will, but it would have looked like I was in his will because I was doing what others were saying. But God was showing me, those people that you was around when I didn't let the devil kill you and I didn't let you get locked up, like those, that's who you're called to. Those single mothers, that's who you're called to, and it's time to get to work. And we did it through the podcast, and I just stepped out on faith once again. I had no idea. I kind of started it with like a one-man show. I was supposed to have help, but things didn't really go through that way, but I just continued to go. And when I dropped the first episode, I was like, I didn't even want to look at my numbers or anything because I'm like, I don't care. I was like, if it's just one person and I'm doing what God wants me to do, we try to be humble.
Yeah.
But then I saw like, okay, we are hitting different countries and things now. The first episode was like 23 cities, and God was showing me like, now could you imagine had you sat still and not move forward? Those people that I needed to hear what you had to say would have missed out on that. So he was showing me it's very important for us to do things that he seek him for direction, for our lives, and don't allow other people tradition, to make us feel that we have to do it a certain way.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We're in different times, and people are, a lot of the time it's projection. And people want you to do what they wish they did, or what they think looks best for you. And so I'm just every time we do one of these podcasts, I'm like, I needed to hear this at this moment. Like,
always
crazy.
And then a lot of people also aren't used to change,
Exactly.
We're always taught, go to school, get a good education, get a good job, have a family, have children. And it's just like, we are in different times, and God's definitely moving through us, letting us know, just because that's the norm for other people, that may not be the norm for you. That
people weren't breaking
that I have for you. That may not be the purpose that I have for your life, Or I love that you're able to, you were able to stand still first, because we do have to have moments where we're able to listen.
Yes.
And take that moment to heal and stand still and build a better relationship with God, so that we can make sure that we're hearing from him and not our own thoughts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I also want to comment on this. When people are always in your ear about certain things and what you should do, and then sometimes I've gotten to a point where God has shown me, well, everybody could tell you what titles you need, us living here on earth. None of that we're going to need once we go into heaven. You know what I mean? So he has shown me that. And I wanted to like even just put that out there for, because, what I mean? It's good to have all these titles and all these things that we want to need. And everybody always telling us what we should have and what we should be doing, but like, think about it spiritually. Like when we go to heaven, I put that in my head too, but I want these good things too. But in the end, we're all going to be just like each other once we go to heaven. So it's not something that we need it here, but we're not going to need it when we're up there.
Right. And those titles aren't going to get us in heaven. So we shouldn't fight for the title.
Exactly.
We fight to have the heart like Christ.
Yeah.
The titles will not get us to heaven. There's going to be a lot of people at the gate, like, hey, I want to do all this at the third, right? But you didn't love my people.
Yeah.
How did you treat your neighbor?
Absolutely.
Stuff. How did you treat your neighbor when you came outside? And I think people forget about things like that. Well, I did that in the third, and but how are you when it comes to other people? Or how did you take the enemy or someone that's back talking you when you get to when we get to the forefront of things, and that was a good point, Jenny. I like that.
Yeah, that was. That reminds me of my the title of the upcoming episode is functioning but not fulfilled, successful but not satisfied. And I talk about how we do what we're told to do, what the world says, this is how your life should look to be successful. But a lot of people's not happy. And so it's not only that we're neglecting, like other people by trying to get positions and titles and, even careers that look good or pay good, we're neglecting our souls. And I feel like with all these mass shootings and everything that we're dealing with, like, you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. And so the goal should be, I know my goal, I want to feel that peace. I want to feel that abundant life that Jesus said he came that we may have. Our goal should be to find out who we are and what it is that makes our soul happy. Because when our soul is in a good place, God is able to use us. So you're able to be more loving. You're able to be more, happy and being able to love on other people and uplift and edify and do the things that he required for us to do. You see some people that's successful, but they're nasty. They're tired. They're working a job and they're paying the bills, but they're not able to even enjoy the fruits of their labor. We see celebrities that have all the money in the world and commit suicide because they're, the whole time they were neglecting their souls, doing things that, maybe just to survive, but nothing that makes you happy,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Mm.
And you're a
Yeah.
living testimony. And I think it's important that you mention like your soul being happy versus
Mm-hmm.
flesh being happy. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I was doing the most, when I was living the most foul, I felt like my spirit was in flames. Like I was like, this is
Mm-hmm.
weird. But on the surface, that's when I got the most likes, the most ad, the most
Mm-hmm.
friends. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
about, but it's like internally, I was like, this is weird, and this is when I have the most friends, and I don't like myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you really have to step outside of your, you know what I mean? You have, it does, it's not about what everyone else is doing or how you can fit in. It's about
Mm-hmm.
how you can make your spirit happy. But like Jenny said, that's what's going to get you in the gates. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Appeasing your flesh isn't going to really, it's temporary. It's a temporary fix,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
so
I
I think
agree.
it's
Mm.
important to make sure with anything that you do that your spirit is aligned and God's aligned with your decisions. Because obviously, Nani, you're living proof that if you work hard and keep
Mm-hmm.
God in your life, you wear so many different hats. Your children
Mm-hmm.
are so successful. Like you are living proof that
Mm-hmm.
you can break the system, you can break cycles and actually obtain true happiness. So
Yeah.
I needed that tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
That was
Thank you.
Such such a woman of faith, brave, and a wonderful testimony. And thank you so much for your story. And I
Mm-hmm.
hope anyone that's out there that takes heed to your story and just walks out in faith, just like you. Well, we all women,
Mm-hmm.
us women of strength should be walking out in that faith as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question that we all ask our guest speaker. What makes you
Okay.
uncommon?
Ah. Let's see. I would say my path in life. It's not common.
Mm,
It's not typical.
mm,
And the fact that I'm able to be okay with it, be okay with who I am. That's not common. You know, um, I don't feel that I need to fit in. When I tried to do that, I wasn't happy. My spirit was not in a good place. And, just being able to trust God and allowing Him to, remove certain people out of my life, He's replaced them with better
mm,
people.
Amen.
It definitely benefits you to be rare and be different and just accept your path. And real quick, one thing that God just showed me recently, and this is even with, being into like life insurance and things. A lot of times we will beat ourselves up about what we don't have, or we will look on social media, messes up the minds of people. They can't really love
mhm,
themselves or, accept their uniqueness. And so we see someone getting married, or we see someone, having the car, taking these trips and going to Dubai, and God was showing me, like, just be okay with the path that He put us on,
Yeah.
because a lot of times you don't
mm,
know. And I've seen that with people that, may be very financially stable, but they're dealing with an illness. Like, you don't want God to
mm,
switch up. Like, okay, so since you say you want this because you see this person have it, okay, I'm gonna give you this, but you got to take everything else that they're dealing with. And they may be dealing with cancer, they
mm.
may be dealing with this. So God was showing
Yeah.
me the freedom is when you can accept the path that I have you on and the things that I have given you to deal with. And just know that I said I won't give you more than you can bear. And you're looking at someone else from the outside, but they're bearing something that's more than you can bear. But I gave it to them because I know they could deal with it. So
Mm.
it's, a good thing to just be able to accept your path, accept who you are, accept what God is doing in your life, and live life and be happy and embrace, being uncommon. Let that be the goal. Who wants to be common?
Yeah.
I love it.
I love that. I definitely love that. That was
Yeah.
so good. Um, Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this evening. If you want to be a guest speaker, or if you know someone that wants to come on our platform to speak on the testimony, you can email us at uncommonwomenpodcast@gmail.com. Also, make sure you go check out our YouTube channel, like and subscribe.
Yes, and we are transitioning to TV, so guys, this is going to be big. So please don't be the reason why the people near you aren't, getting exposure, promotion, or getting to the next level. And also stay tuned with us for Motivational Monday. Like I said last week, I think me and Shanae are going to come up with some good ideas, Jenny Lee as well. We just want to motivate people and honestly do God's work and be uncommon. So just tune in with us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
We
This
hope
was
you
great.
enjoyed today's episode. If you've been shacking up with us for a while and haven't subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Please like and subscribe to Uncommon Woman so you won't miss another episode. And remember, don't let anything or anyone affect your peace. Good vibes and stay uncommon.